Ranking the fairy tale women from worst to best was a bigger task than I imagined and was a lot more challenging than I expected. Hey everyone, welcome back if you're returning, welcome if you're new, it's great to have you. Here at Anime and Beyond, if you don't know, we try to get into everything and anything. And today we're going to be getting into a bit of a request that I couldn't quite live up to because there's a lot of women with fairy tale in general. So I had to narrow it down to the fairy tale women within the fairy tale guild. Without further ado, coming into the 10th spot, aka the worst spot, Lizana. And I say that for two reasons. One, when she came back, she pretty much had no purpose or place within the guild. I mean, to be honest, she was just there. At bare minimum, they could have at least brought her back to be a love rival and compete with Lucy, but they didn't even do that. The second reason is that Elfman and Mira, they went through so much trauma after that whole incident with supposedly losing Lizana, only for her to be brought back in the end. So to me, that kind of sullies their story and the trauma just a little bit for me. For the 9th spot, I decided to put Evergreen here because, to be honest, she hasn't really shined much since the Battle of the Fairy Tale arc, and she's pretty much a forgettable character apart from Elfman. In the 8th spot, Biska, I believe that's how you say her name, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, contrary to her spot on this list, I actually like her. I just feel like it's probably not fair to put her higher than others like Juvia, Urza, and Lucy when they do play more of a role within the guild. And I will say, similar to Evergreen, Biska doesn't really have that much of a presence either, but I'd argue she's not as forgettable. Also, although it's highly unlikely, I would like to see them use her a little bit more. I mean, I haven't read 100 Years Quest completely, I kind of stopped, but maybe there's hope. While I understand that she's a mother, a wife, and she has this family, I could see her being very useful for gathering intel, and I feel like that would be low risk. I can definitely see them going from town to town, gathering information, and relaying that back to the guild. Number 7, Levy. Now, I love Levy. I think she's adorable, she's smart, but she's mostly just a tag-along for Gajil, and I'd say 7 out of 10 will probably see one with the other. Personally, I think what made Levy stand out to me so much was her magic and how unique it seemed, as well as the fact that she was able to kind of go up against Freed, or however you say his name. So seeing his magic and his potential when he fought Mira Jane, that led me to believe that maybe Levy can one day get there, but I'm not entirely sure, and I think she's mostly going to be used for her book smarts occasionally, but I could be wrong. In the 6th spot, we got Kana, and she tends to have really big moments like Fairy Glitter, and that's actually one of the reasons I put her above everyone else that we listed previously. I also feel like she's a pretty relatable character. She drinks a lot, which I suspect has to do with a little bit of the baggage she carries. But overall, I do think there's some depth to Kana's character, and at least that's how I perceive Kana's character. So I'm definitely comfortable putting her in the 6th spot. Now this is where it started getting a little bit more challenging because now we get into the main girls like Urza, Mira, Lucy, and Juvia. But in the 5th spot, I did decide to put Juvia only because her obsession with Gray can be a little bit off-putting as well as distracting, just like we saw in the Grand Magic Games. I mean, the way I kind of rationalize it is that Juvia is so strong that maybe they had to nerf her in some sort of way. And maybe that was a way to nerf her by using Gray. But that's really just my own personal theory. Juvia is such a beast, and I think she has the potential to be greater than what she already is. And potentially OP, because her ability is water-based. And water is essentially everywhere. In the 4th spot, we have Wendy. Now, not only is she a dragon slayer, but she's a very likable character, she's sweet, and I feel like she has a lot of potential. I imagine that she's going to be very powerful when she gets older, and I definitely look forward to seeing how her journey, how her story is going to play out. In the 3rd spot, I put Lucy. And I only put Lucy in the 3rd spot because I feel like she didn't get as much time to shine as she should have in Fairy Tail. She was cheated a lot of times in the series, especially during the Grand Magic Games, and that really angered me. Especially because Lucy tends to get a lot of hate as is, and I honestly don't understand why. Now I can see the fan service aspect probably being annoying and maybe playing a role as to why people don't like her. But not only is her magic pretty much unique, but I also like how far Lucy has come despite being cheated and despite a few shortcomings within the series. I mean, she has gone from just summoning one to summoning many to being able to summon the celestial spirits and using their abilities. I think that's a lot of growth and development with her powers, and she probably should be number 1, but I am going to keep her at 3. As for the second spot, I did give it to Mira Jane, and I may be a little bit biased here because Mira Jane is absolutely one of my favorite female characters in Fairy Tail. She is unbelievably strong, and I do believe with a lot more screen time, she could get a lot more time to shine and showcase her abilities. I could be overhyping her, but I think she is severely underutilized. I think she can benefit from a lot more screen time and a lot more battles and fights. At one point, she was on par with Urza, and I would love for that to come back, but that's just me. Lastly, we have Urza in a number 1 spot. Now, contrary to where I put Urza, Mira Jane is absolutely my favorite, even over Urza, but I don't think it's necessarily fair to put Mira Jane over Urza when Urza is stronger. Urza has all of these feats, and Mira Jane isn't as much of a fighter as Urza. But if I had to be honest, sometimes Urza is too OP and she can get certain things off simply because it's her. And that kind of irritated me a little bit, but not enough to make me dislike Urza. Now maybe after I catch up on the 100 Years Quest manga, or when I catch up on the anime whenever it's released, I can revisit this topic and do different rankings and ratings, but we'll see. Anyway, I couldn't exactly deliver on this request to a T because there's way too many women in Fairy Tail for me to be able to narrow it down effectively. But y'all let me know what y'all think. How would you rank them from worst to best? You can drop it down below in the comments. Please remember to be respectful of everyone like you always have been. It's greatly appreciated. I want this to be an environment where everyone feels welcomed. Also, I may not be able to do every single request because it is kind of just me doing everything. But that's not to say I won't attempt at times. Anyway, thank y'all for all of your support. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Sierra Nova is out.